my name is Annie Abundis, and this is my vision tree that goes along with my personal vision statement. And for the tree, I actually decided to do an overarching theme, and then that's going to be encompassed with the title that I gave it. So I decided to title my tree Floricanto, and then that translates in Nahuatl to Xochitl. I apologize if that's not pronounced correctly. And the meaning that this has is poetry and truth. So to me, poetry and truth embodies the way that we make meaning and create new things out of like our truths. So we create art kind of like in this tree to represent like this poetic knowledge that we hold. And it's rooted in the truth in the sense of how Chicana studies reveals to us things that are or excavates out things that maybe were in the past in hidden curriculum or things that face like erasure. And so to me, it was important that we go ahead and highlight this. And then I also, another part that's going to be important to this theme is my bisabuelo Jesus, which is going to be pictured here as a little man. And I decided to include my bisabuelo Jesus because I kind of felt like he embodies kind of like the keeper of this tree or what this tree is meant to be. So my abuelo Jesus is my abuelo Salvador's dad from my mom's side. And my abuelo Salvador has told me stories about him, and specifically something that he highlights is the way that he loved to read, but more so he loved to share these stories with like the children in the ranch. And he would gather, like he would literally invite them all over to his house, and they would sit under like a tree in a garden or in el campo. They would go out and he would just read stories to them as long as they would stay. As long as they were there, he just kept reading. And to me, that just kind of embodies that this tree is a place to tell stories, to learn more about ourselves, to find these like truths that have been hidden in the past, and to create it something, to make it into something poetic. Take these truths, these things that we learn, and create it, and just create these beautiful spaces that encompass joy and healing. So with that said, my bisabuelo Jesus also inspired me to put in this lyrics, which also goes to the purpose of the tree. So it says, so this is from the song Donde Jugarán los Niños, Where Will the Kids Play? And it's by Maná. And I have a big influence from my mom about Maná. So then that also is a dedication to her and her support. So it says, Cuenta el abuelo que de niño él jugó entre árboles y risas y alcatraces de color. Recuerda un río transparente y sin olor, donde abundaban peces no sufrían ni un dolor. So in English, this will translate to my grandpa tells stories of playing as a kid, where he played between trees and laughter and calla lilies of color. He remembers a transparent or clear river without odors, where there was an abundance of fish who did not suffer a single pain. So to me, it's kind of like the way that my grandpa would tell these stories of how the way that they lived. And my mom also highlights this for me in the sense of how what's important to us is like our culture and our values, and that those are things that remained instilled with us and that we pass on throughout generations. So I wanted this tree to be a place of kind of thinking about the title of the song, Donde Jugarán los Niños. This is where the kids will play, where they will rest, where they will come in community, where they can reflect and see themselves reflected across time and space, and where they can nourish their body with the fruits that the tree gives. So I wanted it also to be like an intergenerational and intersectional tree in that way. So to start off, for the roots, I started with the phrase, I carry, embody, and cultivate. So for this, I wrote down the relationships or connections that I hold and bring in with me, and also the quality or like a trait that I myself want to continue to cultivate and carry with me. So it says, my abuela's remedies and stories. So it goes back to kind of like that, like medicine or pomada para el corazón, for the heart. And then my abuelo's laughter, joy, and kid at heart. My sister's compassion, my mom's empathy, my papa's work ethic and heart of gold, my professors' dreams and imagination, the youth's curiosity, and my compañeros or my classmates' support. These are all things that sustain me and that nourish me. And then the ground, kind of this in the sense that it's ground, the place where you ground yourself, where I am able to come back and just feel at peace or feel like this is where I want to do the work, this is where I want to dedicate myself. So they're the places and spaces I envision belonging to. So I have K through 12 education, specifically ethnic studies. So I want to make sure that we continue to do the work also like for K through 12, not just in colleges. And we're working on this right now, but continuing to develop it. And then I included this GUA as a representation for my overall goals to also do work internationally. So I know Chicana studies has its roots also like as being Chicano, also like part American. But I don't want it to be something that's gate kept or like work that we only talk about in the United States, like Chicana studies. I want to make sure that this work, this reclamation, this joy is something that spans across time and different places. And then I included Makla as a representation again of my artistic spaces. And then Somos Mayfair as a way of like where I want to remain and give back to the community I live in, which is Eastside San Jose. And then cultural centers, and finally women and reproductive rights. This also embodies the way that Chicana specifically also have like their movement that lives within the Chicano movement overall. But it's like that intersectionality with gender and how it's another really important part for me. For the trunk, for my values, I put familia, and familia basically for me is like encompassing various values, which include support, compassion, respect, honesty, reciprocity. And for me, it's kind of the way that familia is also chosen, and we choose to see these people with respect, and we choose to honor these people and always uplift them. And we also choose growth. So growth is another really important value for me, because we're not always gonna tomorrow we're gonna be like a different version of ourselves today. And it's that everlasting commitment to learning and to improving ourselves, and to becoming more of ourselves by uncovering these truths and what they mean to us. So with this, transitioning into the branches, some little transitions I put are like acknowledging our holistic selves, community involvement, and making the community the people's community. So like belonging to them, doing everything with and for them. And then, or for us, if I'm part of that community. And then access to resources as well. So these are kind of like values transitioning into now the practices. And the practices themselves, the ones in brown represent kind of like the pedagogies, the different practices or practices that I've learned throughout my time in Chicana studies. And the blue ones represent the roles particularly that I take on to do these practices. So in brown, I have agape love, in Lakesh, humanizing listening, Pancha Bien Hunapgup, and then culturally sustaining pedagogies. And then I also wanted to include the way that I do this is as being an educator, but breaking this down, what does it mean to be an educator? It is to be a storyteller, to be a weaver, a healer, and then I also added to be an artivist, which is an art activist, in the sense that you advocate, and you're an activist for different things, and you use your creative outlets and your imagination primarily to imagine new worlds and new ways of being, which is what I want this tree to be, a place where we dream and we envision new things. And then the branches are also what sustain that practice overall, which I represent with the swing right here. And with the spring, I put something I learned with Pizarro, which is freedom, dreaming, and freeing being. So this is a place where we can rest, but we can also soar. So we can sit there and rest and plan up all these things. And that doesn't mean that, or like we're working and we're doing these things, but we're also making sure that we take care of ourselves, that we're rejuvenating, that we're having like, that we include joy in the movement. And then also that we, it's a ride. It's something that we may sometimes progress, we may sometimes go back, but these branches are there to sustain and hold us through these practices. And then the honeycomb represents kind of the way that we have to do this in community, and also the way that we protect ourselves. So by doing this in community, the way that bees do this, we work together and we can create something that nourishes our bodies and our souls, and also that, like honey, has healing properties. So when we do this work, we are also doing it for us and for everyone else around us. Then the final part would be the flowers and the fruits. So I only included one flower, which is a calla lily up here. Kind of like a calla lily, hope it looks like it. And for that, I put rest and rejuvenation, which again is really important for me and something I learned from my mom, which is why I represented it with her favorite flower. And then for the frutas, I decided to put mangoes and aguacates, mangoes and avocados. And they also hold a meaning for me, specifically moving from the avocados to then the mangoes. And the avocados for me, my abuelo Salvador had a tree, and we also had a tree in my family, and they were avocado trees. And what happened is that these trees were really important to us. They were something that we, specifically my parents being here, living here in the United States, that it was something that we gave to the community, that we allowed it to be like a communal space for people to just enjoy the tree and take things for themselves and for others. But it recently got, I think the hardest part was seeing how it was like taken away in different steps. So they kind of put like they put something in the ground in the tree, so it kind of like broke down the roots, and just I think seeing the para secar el árbol, to dry up the tree. So I think seeing how like something can wither away so easily, and then having it removed and displaced in pieces. And that was something really hard for our family to hear, especially from my grandpa, since it was like on his land. And it's just a small plot of land that he has, and it's the way that he has sustained his family throughout his whole life. And it doesn't, and it's just really hard to see that go. So I wanted to put the avocados, and then the magenta parts represent specifically the fruits that are created. But the avocados represent the way that we take back these joys, and we help, and the things that we hope to see flourish, and how we can reclaim things for ourselves. And then the mangoes are kind of like a fruit that I've always loved, I've written about, and my abuela's favorite fruit, or like one of the fruits that she always has in her house. She makes like agua de mango and like dices of mango with tajin. So they make mangoes always make me think of her, and that's why I wanted to include them in here, because it's also like with my grandpa, also like that feminine strength of hers. She's told me so many stories that to me and kind of represent like what we want to see flourish, how I want to see people grow, and the things that I wish and desire for all of us. So it includes things like cultural centers, seeing our community cultural wealth, increasing funding for public education and public art, land and spatial and urban restoration, land back, ethnic markets, and agriculture to sustain these practices for us, having sexual and health education in the Latinx community, and then political and immigrant rights. So these are just a few of the things that I hope to see flourish. And while they all may like look like they space out a lot, once again, it's like all intersected. And it's important that we always learn that we're not asking for too much. We're asking for what is rightfully ours and what we deserve. And we can always like re-nourish this tree, go back to the ground and the roots, and see more fruit come out of it. Create new dreams. We kind of like open our hearts to new things. So with that said, that has been my tree. This is where I hope to see the children play of our future, the people right now. And it's where I hope to tell more stories and learn through other people's stories as well. Thank you.